Who am I now? Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, especially after a relationship has broken down or something major has happened in your life, and then you just hear the thought or you whisper the thought, I don't recognize myself after you've endured a lot? Maybe you've spent so many years as someone's partner. Maybe you've become a parent and you've put your dreams aside. Maybe you've spent so long trying to keep the peace that you forget what you wanted. That moment where you feel like, you know what, I'm just going to be this sacrificial lamb. Everybody else is going to be happy except me. I'm just trying to keep the peace. I don't want trouble. I just want to make sure that that egg doesn't break. Maybe you spend so long in that relationship, and you feel like your life has changed and you're left, in that relationship asking, who am I without that relationship? And if you've ever felt this way, I want you to know something, that you haven't lost yourself forever. You may feel like, you know what, I've lost it all. Who am I without this person? Where am I beginning? Where do I start? The countless question. But hey, I just want to remind you that you haven't lost yourself forever. You may simply be meeting yourself again. You may simply be meeting your new self again. And in today's episode, we are talking about rebuilding your identity. Not the identity that someone else gave you in that relationship, but the person you are choosing to become. Because that is going to be the real identity that you're going to move forward with.
Arise and thrive.
Hello and welcome to the Empowered Single Parent Podcast. I am your host, Peggy Bareh. I'm a domestic abuse support worker. I'm a parenting coach, an entrepreneur, and a passionate advocate for single parents who are rebuilding their lives with confidence, with resilience, and with purpose. So in our previous episode, that's episode 2, if you haven't watched it, you can go watch it now. We talked about survival mode, right? And why you can feel stuck even when you're desperately trying to move on. You know that moment where you feel like you're trying to move on and there is a rope, you've been tied with a rope and that rope keep pulling you backward. You're trying to make a move, but you feel like you're not making a move, something is pulling you back. Yes, we talked about that in that previous episode. And so today we are going one step deeper, because sometimes the question is not about how do I move forward, but rather the question is about who am I moving forward as? From this point where I am now, everything I've been through, where am I moving and who am I moving as? So this is where you need to find the identity, the new identity that you want to move in. Because if you've experienced domestic abuse and you've experienced cohesive control, divorce, maybe you've gone through separation or maybe even a major relationship breakdown, this episode is for you. And so today we are going to be exploring why your identity can become blurred in a difficult relationship. That's number 1. And number 2, we're going to be looking at why becoming a single parent can make you question who you are. And we are going to be talking again about how to reconnect with your values, your strength, your dream, and your voice. Oh my God, because this is so crucial, especially if you are moving forward with that your new chosen identity. And we are going to be looking at some 3 practical exercises which are going to help you to begin rebuilding your identity. So let's talk about something important that is usually not discussed enough, especially among single parents. And sometimes relationship does not affect our circumstances, right? They affect how we see ourselves. Remember when we went into that relationship, perhaps that relationship that, we went into, before you went into that relationship, you were very confident, you were an assertive person, what you wanted, you had your dreams, you had your hobbies, things that you used to do on your spare time. You knew what you liked and you knew what you wanted. But gradually, things started to change. Perhaps you started changing the way you spoke because you didn't want that argument. That moment where you're just like, I'm just going to sit and watch. I'm not going to say anything. And you're losing your voice in that relationship because you just want to keep the peace. Maybe you stop doing things that you enjoyed because they cause conflict. Some people may have loved like once a week or every month, they go to the salon, they do their nails, they make things that boost that confidence in them. But then you got into a relationship and that is not happening, right? Maybe you've become so focused on keeping everyone happy. Happy. You try to please your husband, you try to please your children, you try to please family members, you try to please everybody. And the last person that you want to make happy or please is yourself. And then you start making, questions and, making excuses for people. You begin questioning your decisions. You start asking yourself, am I being unreasonable? Because that time you get some thoughts, that I always say that chatterbox or that ching that is sitting somewhere in your head and keep asking you question, am I good enough? Am I reasonable? Am I too sensitive? Maybe I'm the problem, right? What if I change? What if I do this? Oh, what if I meet that goal post that they're going to set for me? Because again, some relationship you get there every day, they are changing that goalpost for you. They're going to tell you that, hey, today I want you to do this. I want you to do that. You're going to try to do that thing. Immediately you achieve that thing, they change the goalpost again. Oh, this one, you didn't do this one. And then you try and do it. So the goalposts are never ending. Every day you're raising and running and doing your best, trying to make sure that you meet those goalposts. And that is where you start to ask yourself, am I too sensitive? Is there any problem wrong with me? Am I the issue? Maybe I am the problem. And little by little, your own voice becomes quieter in that relationship. You begin to lose your own voice in that relationship. And then when the relationship ends, you suddenly have your freedom because you know what? That relationship, when it ends, the next thing that you're going to do, of course, you're going to move to freedom. You know what? Let me start life and you move into the freedom. And this is where I always say sometimes you move, you have the freedom, but you're sat there like, what do I do with it? It's not handled very carefully. That is where even a bigger problem will crop up, right? So you are here, you have the freedom, you've gotten out of that relationship, you have the freedom now, but you may not know what to do with that freedom. And you might be thinking, what do I actually like? Remember, what you used to love has been chipped away. And you're thinking, what do I want? What are my dreams? What am I now? What do I do now? Where do I go from here? What do I learn? What do I become? And for single parent, this layer can sometimes be double, right? Because you're not only thinking about yourself, but you're also thinking about yourself as a parent, right? You're thinking like, how can I manage my household? How can I be a good parent? How can I rewrite this story? How can I rewrite this chapter and all of that? And you may be trying to support your children emotionally as well as trying to support yourself. It was so hard. I remember that moment where, my relationship broke down and I came out of it. And we were going through a lot. Like I said, I was struggling with my emotions. I was struggling with my mental health, and struggling with, a whole lot of things. And it wasn't just me. I was trying to keep my sanity intact as well as trying to keep my children's sanity intact as well because they were going through a lot. They were trying to blame themselves. They were angry about what had happened and all of that. And they were teenagers at that time with their hormones and everything. Oh my God, everything was just like mixed up. And you there as that single parent, you're trying to, how do I manage this and manage it so well that at the end of the day, we're going to see everyone is going to benefit from it. And this is where you have to be genius. This is where you really have to step aside and really go inside you to try and find out, who do I want to move from here? Who do I want to become from now? It's not where you're coming from. It's not the baggage that you're carrying from. But now, this is where I am. How do I make things right? Okay. And that is so important because you may be trying to deal with, again, finances. It's a big one. Co-parenting. What if you're co-parenting with the other staff and they are, rather than making things better, they are just making things worse, That is so difficult. And especially if at that moment you are also trying to build your career or you are working as well. Can you imagine all of that mixed together? And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you can disappear from your own priority list. You see those goals, you see those things that you've always loved to, they just go under the carpet. Yes, swept under the carpet because you cannot deal with all of that in one go. And here is the important distinction that I would like you to know. Your role is not your entire identity. You know that role that you have as a parent? Yes, you are a parent, but you are also a person with dreams. You're also a person that has got talent, you've got value, you've got interest, you've got strength, and you've got a future as well, right? So it is very important that, we start to identify that identity and start to rebuild that identity, because where we are going to, we want to go to that new destination with a new chosen identity, not with the identity that somebody chose it for us or gave it to us because of the circumstances. So here is something that I would want you to remember. Identity is not something that you find once and keep forever. It changes, right? Because we continue to develop throughout our lives. We will grow, we will learn, we will fall, we will stand up, we'll get into relationship, things will happen. So circumstances, things are happening. So every season will teach us something new. And every transition will give us an opportunity to ask, right? Who do I want to become now? There's a chapter in my book that I talk about feedback, and I talk about feedback meaning that every circumstances that happen in our life plays as a feedback, whether good or bad. It's all the feedback. It's telling you how to behave. It's telling you a new thing to learn about that person, about that thing. So circumstances, negative circumstances are not always for the bad. It's also to open our eyes to see something better, right? I remember that when we go into relationship, maybe we used to be confident, we used to be resilient, and we lost all of that. What if we went in the relationship without being confident? But that circumstances in the relationship actually forces us to learn how to be confident. Because again, that is me. When I'm assertive today, the things that I do today, that is not who I was. That wasn't me. That is not who I was in that relationship, right? I've learned because of the things that I went through, and I said to myself, hey, I need to really teach myself confidence. I need to teach myself to be assertive and to be more communicative, right? So your identity will change as circumstances will change in your life, right? So every transition will give you an opportunity to ask, like, who do I want to become now? You don't have to go back to that exactly person who you were. You don't have to go back to exactly who you were before the relationship, right? Because remember that relationship, you've been there 10, 15 years, 20 years. You may not need to go back and be exactly the same way you used to be. But where you are now, you want to create a version of yourself that carries the wisdom that you've gained while leaving behind the beliefs that no longer serve you. Because this is where you're going. You say, you know what? No matter what has happened, I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot of lessons. Now, I am taking these lessons with me forward, and I am leaving behind the belief that no longer saves me. Because remember, some of the limiting beliefs that we carry with us while we're in that relationship, you have to start picking some of the negative limiting beliefs that you've been carrying with you. You need to actually start unbelieving them, or some of those beliefs that you've been carrying, those limiting beliefs that you've been carrying with you, especially while you were in that relationship. This is the moment as you move forward, you need to start removing, distancing yourself from those beliefs, rejecting some of those beliefs, and actually learning more empowering beliefs. And this is where I want to introduce you to 3 important words. And the word number 1 is value, strength, and vision. Now, I know you've heard about these words before, and there was a time in my life where I had to really sit back and explore some of these words. What is value? What is a vision? What is strength? Right? Value is like it helps you to understand what matters to you the most. And it can be freedom, it can be family, it can be integrity, it can be faith, it can be growth, it can be peace, it can be adventure, it can be purpose, anything that is most important to you. For me, I have many of these values, but I've narrowed my values down into three. Number one is my freedom, it's a core value. Number two is my relationships, core value. And three is my growth, personal growth. Those are my three core values. So again, it's about looking like what is it that really matter the most to me? It's not about what matter the most to anybody other person. It's about you. Is it your family? Is it your integrity? Is it your peace? Is it your purpose? Is it your freedom? Is it what is it finance? What matters to you? You need to identify that. Very important. And the second word is your strength. Your strength. Because your strength, it reminds you what you're capable of. I know sometimes when we go through challenges, we feel like, oh, I'm not strong enough. How am I going to get through this? Sometimes we parents, especially single parents, you are stronger than you even think. And so your strength reminds you what you're capable of. And you need to think about what you've survived. Because when you sit sometimes and like, oh my God, did I survive this? How did I pull this through? How did I come through this? And I'm still here in one piece. That is where you begin to evaluate and appreciate how strong you are. And you need to think about the decision you've made as well. There's some decisions that you had to make in a rush. You didn't know what the outcome is going to be, but you did it anyway, right? You need to think about the days when you thought you couldn't cope, but somehow you did. So these experiences, they don't define you, but they actually reveal the strength that you didn't know that you have. And this is one thing that I really want you to pause on it as a parent, especially as a single parent. I know right now you may be going through some difficult challenges in your life and you're asking yourself questions and you're thinking, you know what? I cannot come and, hey, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult, but you have come too far. And that is just to prove that, yes, you can do it. Yes, this too shall pass. Yes, you can overcome this. And the last that I want us to look about is your vision. What is your vision, right? Is there any vision that you have? What kind of life do you want to create from here and now? It's not where you're coming from. It's where you're going. What kind of life do you want to create for yourself? That is the vision that you want to build, right? What should my life look like? What is it possible now that I can do? These are very important questions, and that you have to actually ponder on this question, because by answering this question, you are going to be able to build a new identity that you are taking with you from here to where you want to be. And that identity is not only for you, it's also for your children as well. If you say you're going to rewrite a story, this is where that begins. It's not about what people have done to you. Yes, those things matter, but you're picking the pieces, you're taking the lessons, and you're moving with it. So another thing that we wanted to talk about, 3 steps to rebuild your identity. And these are practical steps. And please, if possible, if you are listening to this, maybe it would be nice to have a pen and a paper so that you can take down some notes, you can jot down some important notes, right? That will help you through the journey. So step number 1, I want you to remember who you were. Who were you before you went into that relationship? Before you were married, before you became a single parent, before everything became about survivor. Sometimes we go into a survivor mode for too long, before everything became a struggle. Who were you before that? So these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself. What did you enjoy? What were you passionate about? What were your dreams? Who would I like to become? And all of that. Who made you laugh? What did you learn, or what did you want to learn, especially as you were navigating your journey? When you looked at people, who were your role models? Who were you aspiring to become? What did you believe was possible? And take a piece of paper and write down the person that you were before you went into that relationship. If you do that, you can then list down the things that once made you feel like yourself. It may just be you sitting and having a laugh, watching a movie and all of that, and suddenly that disappeared because you feel like, you know what, you were being seen as being lazy. Do not judge yourself. When writing this list, don't judge yourself. Just list them out. List them out. And don't feel like, was this even possible? Just write it down. And don't decide whether they are realistic or not. Write it down. Write down everything that you've ever dreamt of, everything that you wanted to be, everything, little thing that made you smile, your hobby, what are the sort of things that boosted your confidence, all of those things, write them down. And just remember that when you start writing this thing down, this is where your journey to becoming who you really want to become, that is where it starts. Now, the second step that you want to take, which is step number 2, is you need to discover who you are now. Who are you now? And this is where I may want you to stand in the mirror and look at yourself and just ask yourself, who am I now? Who am I today? Today, Peggy, who are you today? You know what? As I'm talking, I can describe who am I today. I'm a confident, loving, and inspiring woman. I know what I want, and the list can go on. So a few years ago, I couldn't say that. But today, I can confidently say, who am I now? Because I've gone through that process. I've gone through that identity process, and I've identified who I want to become. And I am becoming that person. I'm still working. It's still a work in progress, but I'm getting there. So what you need to ask yourself is that, what matters to me now? What have I learned about myself? What boundaries are important to me? Because this is another massive one, especially as single parent. What are the boundaries that you're setting with yourself? The boundaries you're setting around your children, your boundaries you're setting around your family members, even around your ex-partner, even around your current relationship, whoever is going to come to your life, maybe as a new partner. What are the boundaries that you are setting in that relationship? What are the boundaries that you're setting now? What are the boundaries that you're setting about your finances? Because all of these are important. What kind of relationship do I want? What kind of parents do I want to be? What kind of environment helps me feel at peace? What strength have I developed? So these are some of the questions that you are going to be asking yourself and then just writing them. Sometimes the answer may flow effortlessly. Sometimes you may have to reflect a bit, think a bit. Even if it means you pausing and coming back, yes, do. Because this is the best gift that you are giving yourself. These steps that you're doing, this work exercise that you're doing, these are self-reflecting exercises that you're doing for yourself that is going to make a massive difference. And your answer sometimes may even surprise you. They may surprise you, right? Because you may discover that, you are more courageous than you thought. When I did this exercise, I began to discover that, hey, hang on, I'm even more courageous than I thought. And sometimes when you do this exercise and you feel like you're lagging in something, you are going to look for the solution. Because that is where, for me, I started reading books. I read self-help books. I was just reading and reading, watching things, podcasts that were inspiring me. And this is where that growth also begins, where you have to grow in yourself, right? And you may also discover that you are more independent. You're even more compassionate, you are more ambitious, you are more resilient. These are some of the skills, hidden skills that you may have and that you are undermining. Why? Because the circumstances, the hardship, the trauma of that past, or the trauma, what happened in that relationship, has just eaten everything off you. Now, the third step that I would like you to do is decide who you are becoming. Now that you've identified who you were or what you wanted before you went into that relationship, now that you've identified what you want to become, what you want is to decide, who you are becoming. And now you have to complete the sentence by actually saying, I am becoming so and so. For example, I am becoming a courageous woman. I am becoming a confident woman. I am becoming a confident man. I'm becoming a confident person. Whatever you want to, that will be your purpose statement. And for me, when I wrote that statement up to today, my statement that I wrote, it came from the fact that my mentor told me that, who are you and why were you born? I did not know the answer, to be honest with you. And when you don't know these things, in fact, you're just moving in the dark. Looking back now, if you wake me up in the middle of my sleep and ask me, Peggy, who are you? I'll tell you, I'm a confident, loving, and resilient woman. I am speaking to the masses and I'm leading by example. I am who God says I have what God says I have, and I can do what God says I can do. So these are things that define me. Every day when I think about this day, it gives me that inspiration to say, okay, this is where I'm going. Right. So you need to write your statement. I am becoming a woman or man or person who, for example, I am becoming a woman who can trust herself. I am becoming a parent who creates a peaceful home. I am becoming a person who honors my boundary. I am becoming someone who pursues her dreams, or somebody who follows her dream, her happiness without apology. And don't try to reinvent your entire life overnight, because this is going to take time. You're not just going to do everything now, right? Every day, if you do it one day at a time, if you write those statements and maybe put it somewhere by your bedside or where you can see every day, and then when you get up, just look at it and then you refresh your mind, right? I am becoming a person who honors my boundary. I am becoming a person who loves myself. I am becoming a parent who create a peaceful home, and all of that. And then ask yourself, what would this version of me do differently this week? So every day when you say to yourself like that, then you're going to be walking consciously. You're going to be acting, talking, doing everything consciously so that they can align with that statement and the person that you are becoming. Okay. So, and if you're listening today and you're struggling to recognize yourself, please don't be hard on yourself, because I know that as parents, sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves. You may have spent years adapting to circumstances that requires you to put, part of yourself aside, but your confidence can return. You can actually rebuild your confidence. You can actually dream again. Your laughter can also return. Your sense of purpose can also return. And sometimes something even more beautiful can happen to your life. This journey that you want to begin may be even the most important and the most, fruitful, purposeful, happy journey and a new life that you've ever seen, if I can put it that way. Right. So you don't simply return to who you were, you become a new person, you become more wiser, you become somebody cleaner, you become somebody clearer, you become somebody more intentional, and someone who knows what she will and will not accept. Very important. Because it's not every time that people are just going to dish out things to you. There's a moment in your life where you're going to say, you know what, hey, I've had enough of this. Someone who understands her worth, and someone who knows that peace is valuable, right? And if you are raising your children while doing this, also remember that you are also showing them something incredible. This journey is not just about you. Remember, I said, as you're writing this chapter, you're writing this chapter also for your children. That is going to be a legacy that they're going to learn from as well. You are showing them that life can change. Yes, that people can grow, that, difficult chapters can end. You're showing that everything that you put your hand on or lay your heart on can be possible. You're teaching them that, you know what? It doesn't matter what happened to me. It's where am I going? And what am I doing with the lessons learned? Very important. So I want you to pause for a moment right now. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, who am I becoming? Don't ask yourself, who was I before? Or do not ask yourself, who did someone else tell me I was? But rather ask yourself, who am I becoming? And then write it down. jot everything down because this is where your journey will begin. And keep those 3 words somewhere you can see. Remember the word we talk about, your values, your strength, and your vision. Keep them somewhere that you can see them every day because they're like fuel that energizes you every day. Looking at research shows that identity reconstruction is an important part of our recovery from major life transition. And when a relationship, maybe a career or family structure changes, people can experience what researchers sometimes describe as disruption to their sense of identity. And the encouraging part is that identity can also develop through new roles, it can develop through new relationship experiences, and also through choices. And that means that your future cannot be a continuation of your past. You can intentionally participate in creating the person you want to become next. It is your decision. And this is where choice plays a massive, massive role. This week, I want you to look at yourself, right? And say that today I am becoming someone who, and then you complete the sentence. I am becoming someone who trusts herself. I am becoming someone who feels confident. I am becoming someone who values her worth or, who knows her worth. Any of those things. Let it be your challenge for this week. And do it when you do it over and over and over. You're beginning to see your identity begin to change. It's not going to be the people, the name that they called you before or what they saw you before. It's going to be the identity that you are creating for yourself. So, just for my reflection, I have come to believe that sometimes rebuilding your life is not about finding the person you used to be. It is about giving yourself permission to discover the person you have become. Maybe your journey has changed you. Maybe you've experienced things you never expected, but there is still so much ahead of you. And so do not ask only, what did I lose? But ask, what am I ready to create now? Thank you for spending time with me today on this Empower Single Parent podcast. If today's episode spoke out to you, please share it with another person and help another parent, right, who may be asking, who am I now? And remember that you are not the relationship that ended. You are not the mistake that you made. You are not the label that someone placed on you. You are not the most difficult chapter. And you are a person still becoming. And your next chapter is waiting for you to write it. Take that pen today and start to write your next chapter. Write your next chapter and keep healing and keep growing and keep believing in yourself, because you know what? Your story is not over yet. Take care. Bye.
To be of you.